Hello and welcome to the video. We are going to be looking at something today that I've been asked many a times and had many a discussions about, and I think it's time to get to the bottom of it. And that is, what is the best museum setup for Lego players? And when I say Lego, of course, I mean Mortars, Range Siege and APCs. Let's get into it because this is something that, like I said, I've talked with many different people about. There's lots of trains of thought on it, and I think we're just going to have to get into the nitty gritty today and really look at what are the best artifacts to run for Lego. Now, before we can do that, we need to, of course, just decide what the priorities are for a Lego museum. And this is what I believe, and many people would agree, I imagine, the priorities for a good Lego museum should be. So we are going to need mortar troop damage. That's obviously a top priority, given that mortars are your main troop. We're then going to want to try and get some paratroop damage and some range siege damage. Alongside this, of course, we then want mortar troop HP, paratrooper HP, and range siege HP. Those are like the main things we're going to want to get for our troops. We have got here General's damage and General's HP, and I recently did a video on how to use Lego, and now that Generals are sort of more involved in your army rather than just being a big old missile silo bait, and if you haven't seen that video, link is in the description, I highly recommend checking it out. Generals are now more involved in your attacks, so I've put these on here because these are nice little bonuses and things to aim for if you can. Then to the right hand side here, thinking about equipments, well, of course we're going to want all enemy defensive towers damage and all enemy defensive towers hit points reduced to, well, it's a cap of 85%. So if you've got equipments and you've got all enemy defensive towers damage and hit points over minus 85%, then I'm sorry to break it to you, that's not doing anything extra. Anything over minus 85% isn't going to make a blind bit of difference. The cap is minus 85%, so don't need to go any higher than that. And then the last one though, enemy defender spawn time, however, there is no cap on this. You can have as much enemy defender spawn time as you want, and the reason for that is because that isn't a minus, that is a plus percentage, meaning that it can go as high as it wants. It's only percentages that are decreased that you have an 85% cap on. And then some nice little bonuses that you might want to try and get in your museum are things like quick victory time and rally cooldown and or rally duration. These things here are nice bonuses to add to your museum just to make life a bit easier for you. So this is like the priorities for a museum for Lego. So let's now have a look at all of the artifacts that we're going to want to consider in order to meet these stat priorities. Just a quick one, I make these videos because I love DomiNations and making content, but any extra support from you guys makes it all the more worthwhile. I've recently revamped all the perks on offer on my memberships. Please consider checking them out. Link in the description and pinned comment. Thank you. Go Stag Squad. So of course, with the sort of more recent updates, we have obviously got our World War Hall, like our actual war hall where we're going to have 3 main artifacts. And of course, then we have our showcase, and we're going to start by talking about our war hall and the 3 artifacts we're going to put in there. You can, of course, have 4 artifacts in there. However, and well, when I say you can have 4, that is if you are information age or higher, because you can, of course, have the Hermitage Museum, which gives you an extra slot in your museum, which you can add a legendary artifact into. However, most people actually, for Lego, either use an equipment in there or an extra weapon. So the Hermitage slot is this one here, and you can add any type of artifact in here you want, whether it's a legendary artifact or just a normal artifact, so a weapon, an armor, or an equipment. You can put one of those in there. And what most players are tending to do is stick an extra weapon in there because, of course, mortar troop damage and or paratrooper and range siege damage, those are the priorities we want to aim for. it used to be that you might put an equipment in there, or most people would, because you want to get as high of a enemy defender spawn time stat as possible. But with the showcase now, like, you can boost your enemy defender spawn time in here so much that you don't necessarily need to run an extra equipment, and thus why an extra weapon in the Hermitage slot is probably the best option to go for. So let's have a look at what legendary artifacts we're going to want to use for LEGO, because there's a lot of trails of thought on it, lots of debate, but let's settle it now once and for all. So thinking about these three main slots in our museum, well, a nice easy one to do straight off the bat is Kettle Drum. We definitely want Kettle Drum in one of those slots. Why is that? Well, that is because Kettle Drum is a 5-liner artifact. It gives you 5 lines of stats that are all beneficial to your LEGO museum. Mortar troop damage, barracks troops damage, hit points, range siege damage, and enemy defender spawn time. Barracks troop damage is like amazing because that actually boosts all of your barracks troops, and what I mean by that is it also boosts your paratrooper damage and the infantry that spawn from your APC's damage. And your getting muddled up. It does, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't boost your paratrooper damage, but it does boost your range siege and your infantry from your APC's damage, just to clarify. So basically anything that comes from your barracks will get boosted by barracks troop damage. Likewise, barracks troop hit points. That's going to boost the hit points of your range siege and your mortars. Okay, there's that clarified. So without a shadow of a doubt, British Kettle Drum we're going to have. Let's have a look at the next option then, and the next option really is definitely, and like this is a definite, like everyone that I've spoken to agrees on this, and that is the prosthetic iron hand. And again, I have got that in my museum, and the reason for this is because it has transport cooldown and transport movement speed on it. And these two things, although I didn't put those in our stat priorities, sort of goes without saying, because your transports, you want to be using those as much as you can in a World War battle. And having that increased cooldown and movement speed on them is going to allow you to use them more and more and more. So that's why we want the iron prosthetic hand. Of course, it has also got paratrooper hit points and paratrooper damage, so a 4-liner, really. The enemy anti-tank gun damage, not too fussed about that. So yes, prosthetic hand, without a shadow of doubt, we're having. And now it's this third and final slot where there's been debate, because back in some of my previous videos where I reviewed all of the 300 token artifacts, I kicked up a bit of a fuss and we had a bit of a debate over what this third artifact should be. And really, it's going to be one of these three here. It's either going to be your DomiNations game box, and the reason for that is because it is essentially a 5-liner artifact. Let's just pull up the DomiNations game box, because this is one that you will potentially, once you've made your mind up after hopefully watching this video, want to use yourself. And like I said, it's a 5-liner artifact. It's got general hit points, general attack speed, enemy defender spawn time, general's damage, and general's movement speed. And if we go back down to our priorities list here, all of these things that are on the DomiNations game box, of course, are our priorities. And of course, it does focus on your general's stat points, but that's not a bad thing. Like I said, now that generals are essentially going to be sticking with your main army, game box, lots of people are saying that that is a must-have. However, let's have a look at the other options then for that sort of third and final slot. The arm, I can never say this, the arm requilery of Charlemagne is another potential option, and the reason for that is because, well, it's a 3-liner artifact. You've got paratrooper damage and hit points and general's damage, which is great. So yeah, a 3-liner artifact in essence. And then the next one is the Caligula's ring, and personally, if it was me, I would choose this one over the arm of Charlemagne, because this has got paratrooper damage, paratrooper hit points, and range siege damage. So you've got 3 lines there, as well as the wall sapper damage. So depending on what you wanting to boost the most, your paratroopers or your ranged siege, then the Caligula's ring or the Charlemagne is going to be which one you're going to go for. I am leaning towards Caligula's ring, and you'll notice that I haven't actually purchased. Oh, thank you, Satellite Scan. Have you again? I haven't actually purchased either of those yet. I am still rocking my kettle drum and my prosthetic hand, and my current third one is like a budget option which I have got down here, and that's Tizonia sword, because that's only 100 tokens, and for 100 tokens you get range siege damage, range siege hit points, and enemy defender spawn time. So 3 stats that we like there for just 100 tokens, and at the moment I am sat on 1,174, and what I'm trying to do really is just stay above 1,000, because I'm just basically praying that the mythical kettle drum might come to Marco Polo before Christmas. Who knows? So I'm not in any rush to spend another 300 tokens on one of those third ones that I've just talked about, as in the game box, the Caligula's ring, or the where they gone, or the Charlemagne arm, because I want to, at the moment, I am sticking above 1,000 tokens, which is why I've not yet purchased one of these 3 here. So really, I'm going to say that it's up to you. It depends on your play style and what it is you're going to want to maximize the most out of those 3 artifacts. But hopefully, this has made it more clear on the choices that are available to you. So really, it's going to be one of these 3 that are going to go in that third and final slot there. Now, I'm going to leave them down here because it would be nice to fit them all in there, but we can't. So we've covered our actual war hall. Now we're going to talk about the showcase, because the showcase is something that has enabled attackers to basically increase their power level like beyond imagination, really. And it's allowed LEGO players to take down those 3D defensive bases so much easier than sort of previously sort of able to be have done so. I think that sentence made sense. Anyway, so the other options that we've got, and some of the ones I've put down here, really, all of the artifacts here can in some way, shape or form improve the stats that are our priorities down here. So we're going to have a look at these, and we're going to basically go through each one and think about whether or not it's a priority for you to purchase. Now, before we go any further, what I've tried to do is make it so that all of these ones here, all of these ones are 100 tokens. And that means that for the price of one 300 token artifact, essentially in your showcase, you can get 3 extra stat lines. And before I go any further, I am just going to clarify how the showcase works, because there are some people that have been asking me about this. And to make it really, really simple, in your showcase are all the artifacts that you own. What you need to make sure that you do is go through each of these in your showcase, select it, and then choose the benefit from that artifact that you want to be active. That's it. That's all you need to make sure you do. Only one of them will be active. And if you have an artifact in your war hall, so for example, my prosthetic hand, we can see it says underneath here, assigned to my war hall. So the stat line that I have selected in here will not be active in my showcase, but of course, all of these stats will be active in my war hall. So hopefully that's showcase explained, which means that by collecting more and more artifacts, the more and more of these single stat lines you can then apply to your showcase stats, which if we go down here in the bottom right hand corner and click on this one, obviously then we can see all of our showcase stats, which are separate to your actual war hall stats, but they do all still come together and affect your stats in war. I think I've tried to explain that quite clearly there. So your active benefits in your war hall and your showcase stats, those add together but are displayed differently so you can see which ones are which. Right, that's enough on how the showcase actually works. Let's look at what artifacts are worth getting then. So as I said, these artifacts here, which are 100 tokens, you can get 3 of these, obviously for the price of one of the 300 token artifacts down here. And all of these ones here, as I've said, affect the stat priorities that we've got here. So, if I go back to my showcase, this might make things a little bit easier. As I sort of said earlier on, one of the main things to try and boost is your enemy defender spawn time. And there are several artifacts for 100 tokens, such as the 10th Mountain Division War Kit, the Tizonia Sword, as I mentioned previously. We've also got, where's he gone? Down here a bit more. Yep, there we go, the White Death's War Kit that give you enemy defender spawn time. So those are some nice ones to get if you've got the token spare. Some of the bonus stats I mentioned earlier on were quick victory time and rally cooldown / duration. And there's a couple of artifacts that do that. Namely, I believe, if I get my little highlighter here, let's draw a new one. So the Battlesea Shield, that gives quick victory time. The PS8 Man Pack, that gives rally duration cooldown reduction. Affects your rally, makes that better. We've got, scrolling down, the Nordman's walkie-talkie, that can give you one of those bonus stats. That's a good one to have. And then we've got the Olmec Colossal Head. That one will give you increased rally benefits. Leonidas Bust will give you more quick victory time. So depending on what you've got and what you're thinking of purchasing, you might want to consider these bonus stats down here. And if I go back to my showcase here, I have got the quick victory time and the rally cooldown, because I have gone ahead and I've got the walkie-talkie for the rally cooldown and the Battersea Shield, which was 300 tokens, but I've brought that one over the Leonidas Bust, which is also 300 tokens, because I found that this one is more sort of versatile, because you could use this as a defender with the invading recon scan duration, or you could use it if you're a bomber player with the bomber damage. But for quick victory time, this is a nice one to have. And actually, since having this, I haven't missed a single quick victory, touch wood, since having it. So it's definitely worth getting that increased quick victory time from one of those artifacts I mentioned earlier on. Going back to our little list of artifacts here then, I mentioned earlier on, of course, that barracks troop damage from the drum, of course, boosts all of your barracks troops damage. There are two other artifacts that do that, and definitely worth having in your showcase is the Gemini 8 helmet for 100 tokens, absolute no-brainer, and the Julius Caesar statue. And again, if I go back to my showcase, I have got both of those, not storage, both of those active, because we've got barracks troop damage 17% increase there, and the Julius Caesar statue barracks troop damage 18% increase there. So on my active benefits here, I've got 35% barrack troop damage increase, and then back in my actual main war hall stats, I've also got the barracks troop damage from the kettle drum, giving I think it's a total of 54%-ish increased barracks troop damage. So those ones definitely recommended to get. Julius Caesar, Gemini 8 helmet, have those in your showcase. A couple of others then that are sort of worth mentioning, and again for 100 tokens sort of could be worth it, is this one here, the ZG Vampire. And again, this is an artifact I never actually took notice of before, but the reason it's worth getting is because if we go to it on here, where is it? Warhall Artifacts 1, nope, 2, because it's only 100 tokens, it gives increased mortar troop hit points, and it gives a total of 18% increased mortar troop hit points. It does give APC hit points as well, but we're not really fussed about that. So that's worth getting for 100 tokens and sticking in your showcase, and I might actually do that. For 300 tokens, you can pick up, and I think it was on my list earlier on, scrolling all the way down, Napoleon's Box Locks Pistol. And why do we want to consider that? Because that gives barrack troop hit points increase, which means it's going to increase your mortar troop and range siege hit points, as well as the troop that spawns from your APCs. So Napoleon's Box Locks Pistol, definitely worth considering for 300 tokens to stick in your showcase. I've just realised I was planning on putting all of the ones that I thought we should have on our showcase over in this nice, neat little box here, but I think hopefully everyone's getting the gist of what should go in your showcase. So yeah, back to what we're going to also consider. Any of these ones here, really, like I've said, I've noticed that this video is starting to get to 20 minutes or so plus. But essentially, like I said, you want to boost enemy defender spawn time. That's one thing in your showcase you really want to try and maximize. You want to try and get quick victory time and rally cooldown duration as well, because that's really, really lovely to have. Makes life just so much easier and can speed up your attacks. And of course, we've talked about all enemy defensive towers damage, all enemy defensive towers hit points. If you're struggling to reach that 85% cap with your equipments in your museum, much like I am, then you can pick up, and as I sort of showed earlier on, there are several artifacts that you can increase those in your showcase with. So for 100 tokens, the demarcation stone, that gives enemy defensive towers reduction. And then the well rod, which is well worth the 300 tokens if you're considering, if you're sort of just starting out, that gives all enemy defensive towers hit points reduction as well as enemy defender spawn time. So a nice couple of artifacts there that might be worth considering if you're struggling to reach. If I go to my active benefits here, so I've only got minus 64% all enemy defensive towers damage in my Warhall, but with the addition of the demarcation stone, I'm really close to that 85% cap. Much like my all enemy defensive towers hit points, I've only got minus 66%, but as I showed in my showcase with the well rod, that takes that up to, basically 85%, so close enough for my liking. So that's it really. I think hopefully that's explained what you want to try and achieve with your museum for Lego. In the description, like I said, I've got a full guide on how to use Lego, as well as other guides on like which are the best munitions and what are the best tactics to use. So hopefully that's been helpful. Hopefully that's cleared up a few things. No definitive answer on those main three that you should have. I'm going to let you decide what you want to go with, because everyone's playstyle is slightly different, and like I said, I'm leaning towards either the game box or Caligula's ring. I don't think the Charlemagne arm is going to be in my top three there. So hey, you guys decide. Thank you for watching, and again, I hope this was useful. Hopefully I will see you in the next one. Peace out.